Hello, Mr. Latvis, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, next time, please stand up when the court comes in as if you're in court, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, people of the state of Michigan versus Travis 27016 SD. Mr. Latvis appears with his attorney, Nancy Schaub, who is present here in the courtroom. Mr. Latvis appears via video Zoom. The prosecution is present today through Assistant Prosecutor Alex Saminsky. We're set today for a supplemental pretrial, I believe, on a jury trial as well as a pending show cause. Concerning the matter then, Ms. Schaub, Mr. Saminsky, what is the status, please?
Your Honor, we reached a plea agreement with regard to the underlying charge, and then Mr. Latvis will be pleading guilty to the failure to appear.
All right. Who would state the terms of the agreement for the record, please?
The agreement would be as follows. In exchange for an acceptable guilty plea to operating while impaired, people would agree to amend accordingly. That would be an oral motion to amend at this point. Further, the people would agree to recommend a non-jail sentence.
All right. Is that your understanding then, Ms. Schaub?
It is.
Do you have an objection to an oral motion to be followed up by a written motion by the prosecutor?
I have no objection.
All right, Mr. Latvis, did you hear the terms placed on the record?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
I made some assumptions and ultimately it was my fault, though it was unintentional.
All right, so we're gonna go through your rights here and we're gonna go through the factual basis for the plea. I just need to make my record as we go along here. So the first thing I need to know from you is that the agreement that was stated on the record comprises or is the total agreement as you understand it. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor, the deal was community service and some fines.
A non-jail alternative,
Yes,
meaning
ma'am.
could be tether, could be fines, could be community service, could be all the above. You understand that? It's a non-jail alternative.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you'll be pleading guilty to the failure to appear as well?
I was lied to, but yes, in a sense, yes, it still was my fault in a sense, so yes.
All right, then. Tell me what your full legal name is.
Travis William Latvis.
Mr. Latvis, I do have an advice of rights form with your signature. Did you understand all of the rights contained in this form before you signed it?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand then, sir, you have the absolute right to have a jury trial in your case, and in some instances, you have a right to a trial by court. Are you aware of that?
I believe this has gone on long enough, Your Honor.
All right, so I just need you to say for the record, you understand you have those rights.
Yes, I understand.
All right, the charge against you is being amended to a charge of operating while visibly impaired as a first offense. It's going to be followed up in writing by Mr. Saminsky, who will file that with the court. Your attorney will get a copy. You'll get a copy of it at a later date. But today it's an oral motion to be followed up in writing. It's changing the charge. I'm going to go over with you what the maximum possible penalties are for operating while visibly impaired as a first offense. You face a fine
Yes,
of up to $300 plus court costs. You could be ordered to
ma'am.
serve up to 93 days in jail. You could be ordered to perform up to 360 hours of community service work. If you have a prior conviction of this kind, vehicle immobilization would be mandatory. You'll be required to undergo screening for substance abuse at your expense. Rehabilitation may be part of any sentence at your expense. You will be ordered to pay the cost of prosecution and costs of the police officer. Your driving privileges will be suspended for 3 months. If you're otherwise eligible to drive, you'd have a restricted privilege to drive during that 3-month period. At the end of that time, you'd be required to pay the Secretary of State a $125 reinstatement fee. You'll receive 4 points on your driving record. If you have a commercial driver's license, it'll be suspended for 1 year. There could be immigration consequences as a result of this conviction. For example, you could have difficulty entering into another country. Canada is one of those. If you're not a citizen of the United States, a conviction could result in removal or deportation from the United States, exclusion from admission to the United States, or the denial of naturalization. Do you understand the nature of this amended charge and the maximum penalty then, Mr. Latvis?
Yes, ma'am.
To the charge as amended, what is your plea?
Guilty.
Mr. Latvis, before I accept your guilty plea, then I want to make sure you understand the rest of the rights you're giving up. You understand then there's not going to be a trial. We've gone over that. You understand that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you understand that by pleading guilty, you give up the right to exercise each of the trial rights that are listed in this advice of rights form that you've signed.
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand the court is free to impose the maximum sentence that the court feels is appropriate. However, with the prosecutorial recommendation for a non-jail alternative, if I'm not willing to go along with that, I'd give you an opportunity to withdraw your guilty plea and pursue a trial. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Latvis, understanding that and the other things I've gone over here with you, does it remain your intention to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you presently on probation or parole to any court?
No, ma'am, though I do have, I have, well, I was driving and the insurance on the vehicle that I have a no insurance ticket with Fulton County. I am doing court on the 4th of June.
All right, but you're not on probation or parole in any
No.
case.
No, ma'am. No, I haven't been in trouble in over a decade. This is all a fluke.
All right, then, does it remain your intention after everything we've gone over here to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Outside of the terms placed on the record of the agreement, has anybody promised you anything in order to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am. I just believe it's my responsibility to do what's right for the court as a former military police officer.
Has anybody forced you or coerced you in any way to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Anybody tell you the courts would simply be more lenient with you if you pled guilty?
No, ma'am. I don't have the money to do this, keep doing this. I'm poor.
Are you pleading guilty freely, voluntarily, and understandingly?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, then, Mr. Latvis, the complaint indicates that this occurred on or about July 20th of 2022 in the city of Iron Mountain, county of Dickinson, state of Michigan. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
It said you were operating a motor vehicle on Highway US 2 in the city of Iron Mountain. Do you agree with that?
That is correct.
And due to the consumption of some intoxicating substance, are you satisfied that your abilities to operate your motor vehicle were in fact visibly impaired?
No, I do not agree to that, but I'm here to plead guilty to finish this.
Well, you can't have it both ways. If you don't feel that you can plead guilty and tell me that your abilities to operate your motor vehicle were visibly impaired, then I'm not going to accept your guilty plea. We'll have a jury trial on the operating while intoxicated charge, I'm assume. That's up to the prosecutor's office, though, what charge it would be. So either, what it says here, Mr. Latvis, is that,
Okay, then I plead
You said
guilty.
you were-
I just want to finish this.
well, it said you were smoking marijuana before you were driving and that you were making statements that didn't make sense. Are you satisfied? Yes or no? That your abilities to operate your motor vehicle were in fact visibly impaired at the time of driving?
I had smoked about 35 to 40 minutes before I had left the property.
So my
So-
question is, yes or no, were your abilities to operate your motor vehicle visibly impaired at the time?
I guess to set a good example for everybody else in the entire state, I'll have to say yes.
You're satisfied then? Yes is your final answer.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll take judicial notice of the probable cause portion of the complaint as well.
If the court wishes to supplement, the results were 9.9 nanograms of marijuana each.
All right. You agree with the number then?
I do.
All right, I think then there's a sufficient factual basis. Are the people satisfied?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you, Ms. Schaub?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is either counsel aware of any promises, threats, or inducements in order to get Mr. Latvis to plead guilty that have not been placed on the record at this time, Ms. Schaub?
No, Your Honor.
How about you, Mr. Saminsky?
No, Your Honor.
And does counsel believe the court has complied with the taking of pleas under MCR 6.610, Ms. Schaub?
Yes, Your Honor.
How about you, Mr. Saminsky?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, for the record, I will find Mr. Latvis, you've made out the elements of the amended offense. I will find that your plea this afternoon has been made freely, voluntarily, and understandingly. I will accept your plea of guilty and find you guilty of the amended offense of operating while visibly impaired. You're gonna call the probation department now. I'll give you a phone number to call. They're gonna go over a few
Okay.
things with you. All right, you ready for
Okay.
that number? It's
Yes, ma'am.
906.
Okay,
That's a probation department. So first off, they'll let you know how much your fines and costs are. They are due at the time of sentencing. Secondly, if you haven't made a substance abuse evaluation appointment yet, they'll give you help with some referrals. Make sure you make the appointment right away. It takes a long time to get through that process. Call the probation
clean.
department to make sure they receive the report from the provider. Wherever you go, let's assume for argument's sake, you decide on Great Lakes. They'll tell you they're gonna send it to probation. A lot of times they don't, and there's a disconnect there. So if you'll simply call probation to make sure they receive that report after you have your evaluation, because they need to incorporate that into this last thing, which is the pre-sentence report. That's the recommendation that probation has about what they feel an appropriate punishment is. Ms. Schaub is gonna mail that to you. You go over it with your lawyer before your sentencing date. So it's all a building block. Do you understand that?
yes, ma'am.
All right, so we'll set your sentencing for July 6th at 9 o'clock in the morning. So long as there's a non-jail alternative, I will not have an objection to him appearing via Zoom. You stay in touch with your lawyer. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am. I am grateful to be here. Thank you.
Your Honor, with regard to the two
Failures to appear, then, I'm sorry, I forgot to take the basis on that. Concerning the failures to appear, then, the allegations are that you failed to appear February 22nd, 2023, and August 31st of 2022. You're entitled to in-court hearings, bench hearings in front of the judge to challenge.
I believe that was,
Oh, that was a 48-hour
he
hold.
failed to appear on the 22nd. We rescheduled that to March
329.
8th. And then he was picked up and he failed to appear on that date. He was picked up on the bench warrant and bonded out and
Right,
was supposed to appear on March
29th.
29th of this year.
Right.
Yes.
right. All right, yes, your first failure to appear, you called within 48 hours. We set it for 222 supplemental pretrial and a jury trial. You failed to appear on 222 of 23. You were arrested on March 14th, bonded out. Court was set for March 29th. You didn't appear on March 29th. That's the second failure to appear. You're entitled
Yeah,
to
I don't
show
get,
cause. You're
I don't get
entitled
paid
to
until
show.
the first, so, sorry.
You're entitled to have show cause hearings where you could challenge the truth of the allegations that you failed to appear in court. Do you understand you're entitled to those type of hearings?
Yes, ma'am.
And the maximum punishment you face on contempt of court is up to 93 days in jail and or up to a $7,500 fine. Do you understand that?
Hoping more for the fine, Your Honor.
All right, to the charges of failing to appear in court on the 2 dates I've gone over, what is your plea?
Guilty.
All right, then has anybody promised you anything in order to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Anybody force or coerce you in any way to get you to plead guilty?
No, I just live too far away to keep doing this. I just want it done.
Anybody tell you the courts would be more lenient with you if you pled guilty?
No, ma'am.
Are you pleading guilty then freely, voluntarily, and understandingly?
Yes, ma'am. I've never had this happen to me in my entire life.
All right, Mr. Latvis, now is your opportunity to tell me why you weren't in court on those occasions.
The last time I had showed up in, was it around December or January, beginning of January? After that court day, I had called because I was talking to you on Zoom. And then the fellow that I was staying with, because I was kind of homeless, but floating, if you will, I didn't really have a stable residence. He had allowed me to borrow his vehicle to get there, but then that fell out and I didn't have a vehicle no more. And I had called and the magistrate or the clerk had told me to show up in February or April. So I showed up in April, and by then you had a warrant out for, I was lied to. And then the other times I just was unaware because my mailing wasn't set up. I've never been in this spot in my life. My wife left me after 10 years and I didn't know I could get my mail sent to me without a mailing box. I don't know. I was just a fuck up. I never done
You
that.
were just a
Excuse my
mess up? Yeah, a mess
Yes,
up.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right,
I
so
I
Mr.
screwed up.
Latvis, long end of
I
the
just-
short of it is, are we in agreement that you could have taken a little more effort to try to figure out if you had court, when you had court, and follow through with the issues?
In a sense, yes, I could have, ma'am. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'll take judicial notice of the file with the various notices as well as the previous colloquy the court went through before I issued each of the warrants as to dates and notices. I think that that is a sufficient factual basis then for each of the failures here. Are you satisfied, Mr. Saminsky?
Yes, Your Honor.
How about you, Ms. Shaw?
I'm satisfied.
Either counsel aware of any promises, threats, or inducements in order to get Mr. Latvis to plead guilty to the failures to appear that have not been placed on the record at this time, Ms. Shaw?
No, Your
How
Honor.
about you, Mr. Saminsky?
No, Your Honor.
And does counsel believe the court's complied with the taking of pleas under MCR 6.6 from Ms. Shaw?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Saminsky?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Latvis, I'll find you guilty of the 2 failures to appear as well. Probation will talk to you about those. They'll make a recommendation for all 3 of the instances. Same date for sentencing. We'll mail that sentencing date to you. You call that phone number now. Your bond terms
ma'am.
remain in place. In the meantime, your bond is still in effect, all the terms. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am. Be a good boy.
All right, good deal, Mr. Latvis.
What date was that?
June 6th, or July 6th, excuse me.
July 6th, 9 a.m.
You got it. Yes, ma'am.
Stay in touch with your lawyer. Call that number now. Anything else, Mr. Saminsky?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Shaw?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Latvis. Have a good day.
You guys have a great day. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.